Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the last session of what I think has been a really successful and really intriguing symposium. What I'm going to do here, I feel like this might be a bit of an anticlimax because we've seen lots of really exciting, innovative sort of visual presentations. And mine is going to look a bit boring from that point of view. I come from a family of artists, but I didn't inherit that gene. I can't even draw a straight line, which is why I got into writing instead. And that's part of the reason why I got involved with PONToon, to focus really on the topic that I want to talk to you about now, which is knowledge transfer. And this is really looking at the sorts of impacts and legacies that the PONToon project has left. And I think we sort of be good to sort of start. It's always good to start with a definition, especially of a term that may not be familiar to everyone. I've been working on knowledge transfer on this project for about a year and a half now, and I'm still not entirely clear what it means. But so it's a learning curve for everybody. But I did, researching this, I found there are a couple of scholars called Nips, Child and Vock who did an analysis of other Interreg projects. And as you may or may not know, PONToon is funded under the aegis of the Interreg organization. And I think that the sort of definition that they came to was quite interesting. So they said knowledge transfer was a realistic evaluation of a project that considers not only the achievement of stated objectives, which they call conformance, but also the range of dissemination activities and learning effects realized during the project, which they call performance. And I think that's a sort of reasonable way of looking at this, a sort of dialectic between conformance and performance. And I've highlighted the sort of aspects that we've really been, that seem to be important to knowledge transfer, and that we've been focusing on, myself and my colleagues, with regard to the report that we're writing. We, at the end of the day, having sort of had lots of conversations about this, we've come to the conclusion that really the content of the knowledge transfer package should be relevant to quite a variety of organizations and individuals. There are obviously various industry sectors that the project has intersected with, just because of the kind of multidisciplinary nature of what we've been doing. So you know, if you think that obviously education and upskilling is a really big theme for PONToon, and so various kinds of non-academic teaching and learning services, support services, we hope would gain something from our insights and our findings. Obviously various tech industries, you know, web design, game design, sort of industry, social media industry, social media analytics, we would hope that we've sort of you know, come up with stuff that may interest them. But also because we're interested in employability, and what we have successfully, even if we say so ourselves, actually, you know, prepared many women to be more employable in the digital sort of workplace. So, you know, there are sort of various employment agencies and various organizations connected to human resources that we hope would read this and be interested in. Obviously, but this is an academic project as well. It's headquartered in a university, and we are in the business of upskilling and digital training. So we would hope that every level of education, from kindergarten to PhD, would, you know, might get something out of the sort of pedagogical sort of methods that we've developed. But also creative industries. We've heard from artists and writers and comic book creators and so on today. We've collaborated with all of them, and we like to think that we've sort of made some breakthroughs in that area too. So that again would be of interest to people working in those fields. And our focus on well-being and mental health, which is again another theme, something else that we've really sought to improve and have improved through the work of PONToon, I think would make us interesting to various support groups and NGOs. And we've also had a couple of our videos, people like Dottie Guerrero and Claire Udi, talk about digital activism and women's sort of political empowerment. And so that suggests that PONToon has had a kind of impact in that department too. I'll get more specific now and talk about some of the key, if you like, prongs of what we've been trying to do with knowledge transfer. this is where we've benefited lately, actually, with working with Gillian Youngs, who, if you are nice to see Gillian's here. Now, if you get the chance to see her video that she's recorded, if you haven't already seen it, do look at it, because it's very, very interesting from this sort of perspective. Yes, so back to conformance and that idea that you know was sort of sketched out in that definition at the beginning. And, you know, this is something that we were already aware of and we were already doing the knowledge transfer package. But after speaking to Gillian, we got a kind of clearer sense of the importance of this. So this is the first thing we needed to do, was provide a detailed, vivid narrative of the project's positive impacts on the beneficiaries. And the way that Gillian put this was sort of, you know, really trying to find human interest stories, really going deep into the individual beneficiaries' experiences, and show a sort of trajectory, show a kind of development and an improvement and a growth that kind of showed how these women's lives had been changed for the better by the project. So to that end, myself and my colleague Viv conducted a lot of interviews with partners and beneficiaries over several months. And out of that came a number of often quite moving and also inspiring narratives related to all the things that we've been doing on the project. You know, women who had been digitally upskilled, women who had become more employable, more confident about getting a job in the digital sort of workplace. Women who'd started their own businesses, who'd become entrepreneurs and had learned a lot about sort of enterprise. But also, so there were professional skills gained through what we've done, and also sort of personal skills. So feelings of women talk about feelings that the feeling that they'd sort of been able to regain more control over their lives, that they'd been empowered in their personal lives, and improvements in well-being, self-confidence, and self-esteem. And of course, the personal and professional are connected, you know, in everyone's lives. So just to give you a couple of examples of these sorts of stories, these narratives, Miranda Adams, these are just two of many, by the way, just the tip of the iceberg, but I thought it'd be good to give you some case studies. So Miranda Adams, who works for one of our valued partners, Digital Peninsula Network, talked about a 19 or 20-year-old unemployed woman at level 2. The way we've sort of tried to categorize our beneficiaries into 3 levels at PONToon, came to us and was fascinated to learn about social media and other digital skill sets. She attended our WordPress training, so she learned the basics of building a blog and blogging and so on, and then graduated to having an interest in digital marketing, which she really loved. And then after that, she gained an apprenticeship in digital marketing. And Miranda says, we see this as a real success story, given that a young beneficiary got a position as a direct result of our training. So it's a very clear success story, you know, as I say, evidenced for a story of growth and change. Sheepa Ahmed Khan was also a contributor. If you can watch her video submission to the symposium, I would recommend doing that. From the Portsmouth Cross-Cultural Women's Group, she said to us, I truly believe our partnership with the PONToon project has been very successful. Women have been taught new digital skills and learned to use equipment that they would never have had access to before. And I think this is particularly, we're particularly proud of this because these were women who had lots of additional challenges. Many of them were sort of, or are first generation migrants, with language barriers to try to overcome, with barriers to cultural integration. And you know, again, this was a case study. There's more information, much more information about this in the knowledge transfer report, showing the sort of positive collaboration that PONToon had with this group. The other thing that Gillian pointed out to us that was important was with regard to conformance is you've got that very intimate personal sort of focus, but you also have to have the more kind of objective knowledge and the more the sort of the big data and the hard facts. So but then it's also a question of how you present those facts. Nobody wants to read long, boring, dry lists of numbers and so on and statistics. So, and further to Simone Gumtow's excellent workshop she did earlier about data visualization, our focus has been, and there's still more work to be done on this because we still have some way to go with the knowledge transfer report before it's completed. But, you know, if you can, you know, it's that old adage, a picture tells 1,000 words, or tells that, you know, what you can tell in a sort of writing down 1,000 words, you can tell with a particularly you know, striking image. So this includes graphs, infographics, various sorts of illustrations. Louis Netter's talk earlier about the PONToon comic book, I think, is a great example of that. We're also going to get Louis involved in sort of illustrating certain kind of key points that we want to make with the knowledge transfer package. The other aspect of this, of knowledge transfer, is this idea of how we want to transfer knowledge, the knowledge that we've gained through the course of the project, to other organizations that may want to replicate PONToon's model, PONToon's approach, to maybe a different demographic to the one that we've been focusing on. You know, older women, or maybe men and women, or women of a different age group, whatever it might be, but also to different social, national and cultural contexts. So we had lots of conversations about how PONToon's kind of methodologies and techniques might work in other countries, indeed in other continents. And this is something that Peter Grant referenced a little bit in his talk at the beginning of the day, and something that he's done a lot of work with his sustainability report. And one of the interesting questions that he poses is, what might PONToon Mark II look like? What sorts of projects might come out of what we've achieved? And his colleague Rosie Coots, again, these are just two of many examples that have been mooted. She's talked about digital business training hubs that would be much smaller scale operations than the big PONToon project, that would nonetheless kind of mobilize the sorts of training, you know, training in computer skills, digital business products, business social media techniques that PONToon has sort of done, but on a smaller scale and serving smaller audiences and maybe more localized audiences. She's also talked about the business in a box as a kind of all-in-one franchise kit that I suppose could come in whatever format is necessary. It could be a sort of, I don't know, a piece of software, it could be a book, but it's a way that would allow beneficiaries, again, people, underprivileged people, wherever they might be in the world, to sort of start a business from scratch and to give them that kind of know-how in order to do that. And last of all, really, I suppose, is this sort of notion about research methodologies and some of the sort of achievements, even if we say so ourselves, that we've made in terms of methodologies and techniques in the delivery of what we've been doing. And we think that in a number of ways we've established new conventions and best practice for pedagogy in terms of new methods of teaching new digital skills, often kind of prompted by the sorts of challenges of the demographics, you know, the women that we've been working with. Also, I think creativity, we heard from Keiken just then, and also Alison Habens and Louis Netter, artists and writers, are sort of in the digital age are kind of redefining what it means to be an artist or a designer. And that's you know, really a quote from my colleague Viv, who's, you know, we've had lots of conversations about, you know, what does it mean to be a creative person in this particular sort of digital landscape now. Also, I think we might have you know, made some breakthroughs in terms of the sort of governance and structure and operation of the project. The fact that we've operated across multiple sites in southern England and northern France, that has required obviously joined up thinking and sort of, you know, and a certain amount of kind of compromise, and sometimes with challenges. But, you know, so, and there's been a kind of local and a larger scale sort of manifestation of this, in the sense that our partners have had to address particularly local challenges, local, you know, for their particular beneficiaries, but then we've had to get together across that broader geographical scale to address challenges collectively. And of course, I think something that's pretty obvious, should be pretty obvious to people, is that PONToon has really made contributions to practice-based research. In other words, sort of trying to advance or develop academic understanding of, you know, creative endeavors, whether this is writing, digital media, music, exhibitions, performance, workshops. And part of that has been the transdisciplinarity of the project, you know, practitioners and experts from very different fields, different backgrounds working together in new and we think actually unprecedented ways. We don't think other projects have done it quite like the way that we've done it. And I think a good example of that, many examples, but a good example is the digital toolbox, which had sort of new and original research and development. You know, to come up with the job map, the VR train station apps and various programs. This involved 3D design, virtual reality, photography, video, social media, mapping software. And again, I think that all came together on this project in a way that you know, hasn't really been replicated elsewhere. And, you know, perhaps there are others who could learn from what we've achieved here and what we've learned here. And I'll just sort of wrap up by mentioning a quote that came out of, again, a very useful conversation I had with Professor Joan Farrer, the principal investigator and, as it were, the kind of leader of the project, which is design-led thinking is about finding solutions to problems. And I thought about this in the context of, you know, the sort of current political social context, if I may speak to that for a moment. William Davies, who's a Goldsmiths scholar, a sort of philosopher of media and tech, I suppose is the best way to describe him, talks about this kind of increasing official hostility towards the modern humanities. Other scholars talk about this kind of war on the arts and humanities that's been going on in education and elsewhere in society. And he says, because it's seen to represent a high risk investment for what is basically a kind of market driven, profit driven society. So there's a tendency to dismiss from certain kind of reactionary quarters of our society. And I think this has always been the case, to sort of dismiss creativity in the arts and humanities as having no sort of practical or professional value. You know, it's just fun. It's just nice things to hang on your wall or nice things to listen to or to look at. Whereas I think maybe for, you know, one of the main achievements of PONToon that I hope will have a kind of long-standing impact is the fact that we've totally proven that particular idea or that proposition wrong. Yep, because we've used creativity and design and art to actually implement very practical solutions to all kinds of problems. You know, the problem of economic inclusivity, the problem of sort of gender inequality. And, you know, for me, that's the kind of lasting contribution that, you know, that I think for me coming late into the project, I was maybe able to look at this as a sort from a slightly more objectively as an outsider. And to me, that's what seemed to be most meaningful in terms of the sort of long-term impacts and effects that we've had. So, okay, I apologize. It was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. It's very difficult to summarize a document that's already about 150 pages in however long I took, 15 minutes, but I'm happy to take questions or listen to comments. Shall I look in the chat bit first?
Yes, Tom, we've got one question from Viv. If you could talk a little bit more about the digital toolbox.
Could someone else who's a bit more tech-minded talk about the digital toolbox? I feel I could do, but I just feel like I'd do a bit of a crappy job compared to maybe someone who worked on it or was involved with it. Not to put anyone else on the spot, but
yeah, I
be
can.
The natural guy.
Yeah, I can talk about the digital toolbox. So the digital toolbox itself is the sort of one of the core outputs of the PONToon project, and so it's a selection of tools using lots of different technologies to try and assist and enhance the women that we've been working with and the people that are training those women. So we've used like different technologies, web-based technologies, including sort of Google APIs and things like that. So developing websites and tools that run in your web browser without requiring any specialist sort of hardware or equipment. And these are the sort of the lower end, easy to access tools. So this has included like the job map, which is our system for a visual map of your local area. And you can see exactly where jobs are, like job vacancies are located on the map. So, you know, some of the women we've been working with have found transport or when they know they need to drop their kids off at school. It actually affects where they're able to work, how far from home they're able to work, things like that. And so it was a tool to sort of assist these women in trying to get them employment. The community map as well, which is about bridging community groups and their local communities around them with the women who work within that community group. So they're able to share stores that they know will stock, especially with, for example, refugee women, the stores that stock the types of foods that they might be used to and they might want now that they're over here in the UK, or for example, the council that we're working with, where are the local events groups and things like that. And then we've also moved into sort of the higher end of technology, mainly for working with the trainers and our partners who are teaching and training these beneficiaries. So we've been using VR headsets like the Oculus Quest and on the lower end, the Google Cardboards, and developing tools to assist or enhance their skills. We're still working on a few others, including like a mobile game that's very simple, easy to use, that allows people to basically upskill themselves. So it's almost like a quiz type game. And so as you go through, you answer questions, it gives you results and then tells you what areas you need to go away and do more research into. So the toolbox sort of, it hits a lot of different sort of like criteria and things that people might want to use it. I've noticed Tony's linked it in the chat as well, the PONToonapps.com, which you're welcome to go away and have a look at the apps yourselves. Sort of, there's a lot of stuff that we don't really want to stay all night and talk about, but there are a lot of different apps that we've been trying to work on to just try and improve people's, not quite quality of life, but try and improve their skills and help them just improve their digital skills, improve how they think about their local area, the job scene in their local area.
Okay, I mean, is there anyone else who might want to make a comment or ask a question? Expect everyone's as knackered as I am after I think we've broken a world record for back-to-back Zoom meetings in one day, but it's all been good. Okay. Oh, that's a clap from Simone. Thanks. Sorry, I thought it was you putting your hand up. In that case, I think I'll just wrap up then and say some thank yous. I'm not going to name everyone's name because we'll be here another 2 hours and it will end up being like the Oscars. So, but first and foremost, a huge thanks to everyone who presented today, whether it was through the videos, pre-recorded videos, or doing the live workshops and sessions. Obviously wouldn't have been possible without you. So we're really grateful to people for giving up their time today. That's fantastic. Obviously, also a huge thanks to everyone who came and asked such sharp, searching questions, made really interesting comments. It'd be great to sort of keep the dialogue going. That's all part of what I've been trying to talk about with knowledge transfer, to, you know, sustain these sorts of relationships. So hopefully that can happen. And an extra special thanks to my colleagues here in Portsmouth who helped to make the symposium happen practically and technically. A couple of hiccups, but generally I think it went really, really well from that point of view, and the hiccups weren't our fault anyway. So yes, thank you everybody. And while the project may be nearing its end, I hope there will be, I'm sure there will be many legacies and impacts and things that will endure from it. And it would be great to work with you all again. Also, you know, I think no doubt there are sort of people who have come new to the project that are bringing their own experiences and skill sets, and it may be that we can collaborate in the future together on something PONToon-like or not. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Cheers. Goodbye.